Welcome everybody to the next episode of the Cannabis Review. I'm delighted to be joined in this episode by Keith Bushfield, who's the CEO of Rexis Biotech. How are you keeping today, Keith?
Good, and yourself?
I'm very well, thank you very much. Thank you for taking your time to do this. Can you maybe give everybody a little overview of your career to date and how you found yourself at Rexis Biotech?
Yeah, it's, serial entrepreneur, came out of school and realized, I didn't want to go down a law school path. I didn't want to go down some of the things that I thought were predetermined for me. So I really got in the entrepreneurial space, did a lot of different things. And then I started a biotech firm in 2009, and that managed to morph into another thing and another thing, approached by a few different companies to say, what could we use our technology, or could we use our technology in cannabis? So we started to do some experimentation, and here we are. So in 2022, Rexis was founded, and it took multiple technologies from different entities, from different people, put them together to produce what we do today. So we are a biotech firm that really specializes in taking hydrophobic molecules that don't assimilate in water, and having them assimilate in water. So a thing like cannabis is a perfect example. We can take that hydrophobic molecule, stick it into our process, comes out the other end in a fine white powder, and that powder is now fully stable in water. So we remove taste, smell, a lot of the profiles that are off-putting with cannabis, but at the same time keeping a lot of the mechanisms for efficacy and so forth.
So we kind of knew from the start of the beverage side of the industry that the cannabinoid molecules were either sticking to aluminium or were settling in a specific part of the can. So you guys are part of this new wave of technology that's allowing the cannabinoids to distribute throughout the product and give an exact kind of dosage?
Correct. The biggest problem with I'll call it cannabis beverages 1.0 or 2.0 or 3, we're probably onto, around 20 by now. But the original companies, the early companies, either just put oil into the beverage, which is just like salad dressing oil and water. It floats to the top, doesn't assimilate, tastes terrible, all the things that are bad with that. Then they got more sophisticated and they used sonification, high shear, a whole bunch of different things that have been in the pharmaceutical industry for years. Problem is it used a surfactant. So a surfactant is basically just a chemical. Some are more organic based than others, but it's still just a chemical. You use that surfactant to bond the molecule to water. So it's just an artificial way to hold it together. The problem with surfactants, they come apart. So they don't hold very well, and it doesn't take long for them to separate. So the other issue with those is the flavor is very off-putting. That chemical that goes in there, it's hard to deal with. So in the old days, you would get colas or root beer or other coffee things to try and hide the cannabis flavor. So with our technology, we use our trade name is fused polymorph nanofiber. So we make a co-crystal of the cannabis molecule. So we make multiple molecules fused together in a permanent fuse. So they don't come apart. So you can take our ingredient, put it into water, put it into a beverage or whatever you're going to use, put it into food, and it will not separate over time. So we've got pharmaceutical studies, 2-year stability in water without separation. So pretty well unheard of in the industry. And that's, I think, why our path to growth has been so fast, because we have this that's different than everybody else. And I think that's where the market needs to go. Just like in every industry, we limp along until we make some breakthroughs in different industries or different technologies and so forth. And I think that's where we're at. So we're starting to see other companies dabble in trying to make it better. But, the beverage space is where the growth is happening. The cannabis has been around in a bunch of different industries before this, but it was limited, I think, from technology. But now we've introduced this technology. It's growing at light speed.
It seems to be the first wave of the cannabis industry was cultivated flower extraction equipment, and it doesn't seem that the first mover advantage is going to end up working in this industry. It seems to be that the reluctance for a lot of big brands to get into this was the ingredient of a cannabinoid, where biotech companies now are able to use fermentation engineering to make this molecule stay stable, replicable over again, and you guys are delivering the mechanism for the distribution of the product. So would it be right in saying that the future of the industry after this wave is the brands, the people who can come up with the brands, tell the stories, and connect with their customer bases?
I think you couldn't put it any better. I couldn't have put it any better than what you just said. I've been preaching this since 2016, 17. There was this mad rush for everybody to be cultivator. Oh, we got a license. I spent $1 million for this one, 10 million for that. I got a license. I said from day one, it's a commodity. As soon as we get economies of scale, whoever sells the best for the cheapest amount of money will continue to sell it, and there will be zero profit margin left. I use this example. Take Budweiser. I have no idea who makes the hops or the grain or the sugar or the canning facility. I don't know any of that, but I know Budweiser, and I don't care who made all the other stuff, but the brand is what is worth the money. So you have situations like Canada, where Canada eliminated branding, and that was a big mistake for their industry, because if all the packages have to look the same, there's no branding differentiation. So branding of a product in that scenario maybe is equal, but in the rest of the world, or primarily in the United States right now, branding is starting to become the most key place. So we're starting to see branding that doesn't look like the old cannabis branding where, somebody was high and built that. Now it is full on, like, we make products that look like, full retail off the shelf. Coca-Cola made this. So it's getting away from that old fashioned way, building a brand that has a long life, building a brand that resonates with people. And key, which I think is the brand is not a fringe anymore. I had a discussion with someone recently about gummies, and they said, oh, gummies are outpaced beverages, always will. And I said, well, I don't think so, because gummies, yes, have been around for a long time, but gummies are associated with children's vitamins or vitamins now. They're associated with cannabis and not a lot of other things. But when someone says, oh, I had a gummy, the first thing that comes to mind is, oh, I snuck a gummy and I had cannabis with it. The person that doesn't know about cannabis and all that has that reputation or that image of what cannabis and gummies are going to be. However, if I give someone one of these, we've been drinking RTDs, ready to drink beverages our entire lives. I can drink this. This is now a transition between someone that's never tried cannabis and someone that has. Someone that can try 5 milligram dose. It's like drinking a beer. It has a slight intoxicating. It's not crazy. You're not, eating two because the first one didn't work and looking at purple dinosaurs 45 minutes later and wondering what happened. So we don't want that. The other thing is the old adage of, I want to get someone as high as I possibly can. We don't go by that. We don't build drinks that are more than 5 or 10 milligrams. It's kind of our own company motto. And the big guys that we work with, the biggest alcohol brands in the world, they have said to us, why would I possibly want someone to have a 100 milligram drink? I want them to have 5 so I can sell them 5 in an evening instead of selling them 1. It makes no sense. So we're starting to see the old cannabis religion of, that get everybody as high as possible starting to dissipate, especially when it's come to mainstream. And that mainstream brings the brands. And I can't tell you who, but I can tell you the biggest brands we work with, and they're coming like a freight train, and people don't realize it yet, but all those purists that were like, oh, keep the Pepsis and Cokes and Anheuser's out of the business, forget it. That's coming, and that's coming strong.
Yeah, and I seem to think most people are overlooking that consumer 55, 60 plus that actually are looking for alternatives to the current methods that are taken for various different ailments, that the people who can tell the brands to those stories. And as you said, the micro doses, nobody wants at that age to be feeling uncomfortable after consuming a product in any way, shape or form.
Absolutely, without question. If there's 2 things that have changed, and with our technology that have really changed the market: speed to use. The old days, like I kind of alluded there with the purple dinosaur, and you were so high you didn't know what was going on. A gummy hits 45 minutes later. And some of these companies are doing nanofibers, which we have nano in our name, but that's just as part of the process. Nano 99.9% of the time is just a bunch of BS. It doesn't mean anything. They can't hold that nanoparticle that size anyway. So some have come up with a better, faster way to make it work, but not really. We did University of Mississippi studies. We did a bunch of trials to see how fast we could do this. We got it in the bloodstream in less than 5 minutes. So you feel it very quickly. And that's the big thing. How can we control offset and offset? So if I can have a drink, make it work really fast, I have a lower dose, that's going to change the industry in terms of what people believe is a realistic dose. People aren't scared to try it. They can have that dose that's be accurate every single time. And that is a big reason why also the industry hasn't exploded yet. And I think that's where it's starting to go, because now the technology will dictate that the big brands like that don't have to worry, that they can build a brand, they can build a product, or so I should say they can build a brand around the technology that will be long-term.
I want to talk a little bit about your Fuse Polymorph fiber technology. Can you maybe explain a little bit, what was the time frame for R&D? It looks like I was reading 3 years. And was that 3 successful years or 3 roller coaster of emotion years?
Yeah, I think they're always roller coasters. We had some aha moments along the way, and I'd even argue that it's been longer than 3 years if you took all the little pieces together. The gist of that technology is we went at it completely different than everybody else went at it. And I think that's just probably from some sheer luck and ignorance as to what everybody else was doing. Because I think if we as a team knew what everybody else was doing, we would try to mimic that. But because we went into it blind, we went in it from a pharmaceutical side, a biotech side that said, look, I don't think that other way works. There's got to be a better way to do it. So yes, you had some trials, tribulations. We did have some very immediate success, not to the degree that we have now. So, it's like going to the casino when you won right away. You're going to stick around a little bit longer and see how it goes. And so, 3, 4, 5, 6 years later, here we are. So the nanofiber is without question a game changer. I think people that know us, have used it, have said how much different it is. The biggest issues with an emulsion, as we talked about, which is what everybody but us uses in a beverage, it's basically just a liquid. You took cannabis and you put it in a sonification device. You made the particles shatter a little bit. You put a surfactant with it, put it with water, and you drop some of those drops in your beverage, mix it up, and there you have it. Within minutes, it's stuck to the wall. Within minutes, it started to degrade, all of the things that go with it. And for the entire time, it tastes terrible. It's hard to hide that surfactant flavor. Now, I will go with some of our groups that are out there. I'm calling them competitors. We don't really do what they do, but they've got better, but they're not there yet. So ours is so much different. We take multiple molecules, we fuse them together. They're permanently fused, and now they're stable. You can take our ingredient, our powder, stick it in a sealed bag so the oxygen doesn't get to it. 2 years later, it has almost 100% the potency it had before it started. If you take a distillate and do that, you're going to lose 30, 40% in a matter of 30 to 45 days. So we suspend that animation, you might call it, so it can sit on that shelf and wait, and then used when it's needed. And when we put it into water, we get the same. We had a 6-month stability test on THC in a can, and we lost about 4% in potency over 6 months in a can. I won't say the name. I know 2 larger players that they have to overdose their cans before they get tested. And then they have to wait 3 days, then get it tested. Then on that 3rd or 4th day, make sure they test it so that it all comes out with the right levels. The problem is this one company had something go wrong with the metric system that they had to enter it into the cannabis system. They had to retest it. And only 7 days later, it didn't pass because it degrades that fast. So the consumer gets a beverage that says it has 5 milligrams. If they didn't buy that beverage for 30 days, the thing has like maybe 2 milligrams in it. So that's not fair to the consumer either. Yeah, it passed testing when it left the lab, but that's the big thing too, of we don't have those issues. And I think that's what's changing the industry too. The technology is starting to build the brands that will get involved. And that's what makes that polymorph nanofiber so different.
It's very, very exciting, and I have no doubt it's going to be one for all the viewers of this show to watch, that the big brands are coming to beverages, and it's because of companies like yours and the team that you're building at Rexis Biotech. So, Keith, I know you're a very busy man, so I won't keep you too much longer, but thank you very much for your time, and hopefully we get to touch base in the next 12 months and we have a few updates from you of where the industry is heading.
Absolutely. Anytime. I love talking about what we do. So thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. For anybody who wants to know more about Rexis Biotech, you can see the website below. It'll be in the description where you're hearing or watching this anywhere. For now, thank you very much and see you next episode.